Welcome back to ESPR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Elliot Grigg. We are still reminiscing and recovering from what was KSI vs Tommy Fury, which happened on Saturday evening. Elliot, keen to get your thoughts here on kind of what we saw on Saturday night, as well as kind of what happens next. Really, we're all kind of really into Misfits boxing here, and yeah, it's something you can't avoid whether you're into it or not. It's all over social media. On a serious note, we're not taking this video too seriously. We didn't take the entire event too seriously. We did some content, of course, but yeah, we're not here to really kind of put our opinions in. Elliot, what did you think of it all? Long night on Saturday. It was kind of a late night as always, but yeah, what did you think of the event?
You know what? I was mixed reviews in some ways. Like we talked a bit about off air. I think I like to be perfectly honest with you. I watched the main two fights, and I also watched I believe it's Slim versus Manny Pacquiao, aka Sol Papi, and I quite enjoyed that fight. To be perfectly honest with you, I thought the actual quality of that fight wasn't too bad actually. To be perfectly frank, things I did enjoy from the show was ring walks, the general production. I thought was really honestly fantastic, and I think that boxing itself could actually learn from that. Um, things the Logan Paul, like you said, I'm not taking too serious. The Logan Paul Dennis fight was disappointing in the sense that, I mean, to be honest, to me, it just highlighted actually how poor MMA fighters actually are at boxing. Like, which just surprises me, frankly. You'd think, like, mixed martial arts, there should be an element of the mix in it, but it basically just seems to be the boxing element of it seems to be non-existent from what I've seen. And then the main event, I mean, or the co-main event, Fury KSI. I said before in our video that KSI is a terrible boxer, and I stand by that. But I also think that Tommy Fury, it was difficult for Tommy Fury in the sense that they were just hugging each other for a lot of it. But it wasn't a great show, was it, for Tommy Fury either? If he's got aspirations of actually doing anything in professional boxing, I mean, he got the win, fair play. I thought he did win, but it was a terrible fight, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. But the other elements of the evening were enjoyable. Apart, let me finish. What I was going to say though, the start times as they are in boxing were a disgrace. Far too late. Pull it forward, and let's get to bed earlier because it wasn't worth staying up for, frankly.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I saw there was like a notification from Michael Benson earlier in the day that KSI Tommy Fury Ringel was going to be 11:15, which at the time I thought was crazy because a lot of people who like KSI are children who kind of have bedtimes, or so that was kind of strange to me. And then look, I don't know the exact time the fight started or the ring walks were, but they were later than 11:15. So I don't I don't know, and I'm sick of talking about this. And it's annoying that Misfits isn't proper boxing, yet they feel the need to have ring walk times that are as silly as Matchroom and Boxer and TNT Sports have. Really, I can't be asked to talk about it too much, to be honest, but just really annoying to be on. Yeah, just really annoying when you're starting to feel tired and the fight hasn't started yet, and you're wondering why it hasn't really, considering the event started at what must have been kind of half five in the afternoon. So yeah, a very long night. I agree with you on the production. However, I just feel like you got this fantastic production, and but then when you've got what's not a great product, it kind of maybe makes the production look a bit silly. I'd rather have not great. I'd rather have not great ring walks, not great production, but a great fight. And it felt like we kind of had the opposite on Saturday night. To be honest, and we knew it wasn't going to be a great fight. However, those two main events, they really weren't entertaining. I think coming up with like a highlights package in either of those two events could be quite difficult.
I think the reason I think you probably have that opinion, and it's no stranger to regular viewers here, is that you are yourself a boxing purist that spent many an evening at York Hall, where, like you said, you've got less production but actually better fights, and as you were there obviously at York Hall, obviously the past weekend as well. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think there definite kind of WWE kind of influence that kind of crept into Misfits, but I also feel like, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not, like you said, I'm not sure a lot of the fans there are there for the boxing either. I like for what you describe as pure boxing. I think they're basically there for, they have an awareness of these personalities, and they essentially want to see how they get on. And frankly, as long as their favorite or their one kind of succeeds, I honestly feel like that's enough for them. If they're up, like we said, if they're up awake when that was happening, sipping on their prime drinks, trying to keep himself lit until the thing started, man, I don't know. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they were there fully for the art of boxing, to be honest with you. But that might be condescending and patronising. But yeah, it is what it is. But I feel like maybe, to be honest with you, what I would caveat this by saying as well is actually, and don't get me wrong, I've not been on board with Misfits from the very, very beginning. But from what I have seen, the quality actually in certain fights and some of those undercard guys actually has improved from the very first cards were dreadful. I mean, I'm not saying they're obviously pro cards now, but it does seem to be actually going in a kind of encouraging direction if that's what you're into. Even though, like you said, the main events yesterday were disappointing, to say the least.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think also now you these Misfits cards. It's not just like YouTubers versus YouTubers. Like Tommy Fury obviously is what 7-8-0 as a pro. Dylan Dennis has a background in jiu-jitsu. Logan Paul is obviously kind of regularly features on WWE and looks quite impressive on WWE now. So that's one of the things about last night that I didn't mind. Whereas when it was Logan Paul against KSI a few years back, that was YouTuber versus YouTuber. Whereas now you've actually, some of those guys have improved, like Salt Pappy and Slim, I think his name is. They both actually had a number of fights now. So it's not atrocious. Whether when it's one guy who has never fought before and another guy who's never fought before, that's a recipe for, don't want to say disaster, but just shit, really. It's just not going to be good to watch. Getting on to what happens next, that's mainly what we're here to discuss, Elliot. Tommy Fury beat KSI just about last night or on Saturday over 6 rounds. Jake Paul's in kind of that mix as well. Logan Paul, I'm not sure how much he's really in the picture, how much he wants to box again in the near future. I think his last fight was 3 years ago, I believe, when he had that exhibition against Floyd Mayweather. He's not been as active as the other guys. Tommy Fury, KSI, do you think we will see the rematch next?
You know what, probably. And just because I feel like for Tommy Fury, about what happens next with Tommy Fury, I think what's become evident over this last year or so is that Tommy Fury is not going to necessarily succeed in the boxing world, in the pro boxing ranks. And for me, it'd be hard for him to then go, okay, I've headlined this Misfits card, which, people can disparage it if they want, but fundamentally you've headlined a major event there. Do you want to go back and fight on a Queensberry card, against some Polish guy who's kind of 7-15 and labour against that when you're not the main attraction? I don't necessarily see that happening either. So in a way, I think kind of fits the narrative that he fights KSI next. I think he beat KSI again. I would like to see the Jake Paul rematch, frankly, but I'd also actually quite like to see Jake Paul go off and fight elsewhere, like 1 or 2 fights before that happens again, like kind of improve a bit more and bring that to table. So for Tommy Fury, possibly. I mean, someone put a tweet out yesterday, which I do agree with, and it was almost saying the Misfits brand, it was packaging it essentially as, I'm not going to reference this person because frankly I've forgotten you, but if you are out there listening, this is your tweet that I'm talking about now. Essentially saying that Tommy Fury was almost like the boss level of sort of Misfits. Wasn't very good, but was just good enough to like continually win. And the product beneath that's obviously not as good, but all these guys are trying to reach that level. I kind of feel like that's where he now belongs. I wouldn't mind him throwing in like, look, someone, this is going to sound outrageous probably, but even someone like McGregor, fight Conor McGregor, fight Tommy Fury or something. Let's see that. Let's just throw in some other MMA guys that are kind of strikers and see how he gets on. That's kind of where I see this kind of going, rather than Tommy Fury trying to go and fight for a sort of Southern Central area title. I think he stays there, maybe KSI next, beats KSI, and then we'll maybe, hopefully, Jake Paul concurrently is fighting, other guys, and then work to that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you here. I just think, look, guys like Tommy Fury, KSI, guys who are kind of, are worth a fair amount of money, make quite a lot of money as well. They have teams, they have advisors, and I just think Tommy Fury's team are not going to tell him, let's go and fight someone who's no one's ever heard of for considerably less money in a fight you might win or lose, when you could rematch KSI and you'd probably win for what we're talking 7. We're talking 7 figures here. So I think it's really, for Tommy Fury, it's a case of, does he rematch KSI or rematch Jake Paul, to be honest? And I think I probably edge towards KSI. I hate to kind of completely agree with you, but I do think that slightly, and Jake Paul will maybe fight maybe fight another MMA fighter. I don't know. It'd be nice to see him maybe not fight an MMA fighter, do something different. But I agree with you. I think that's the most likely thing here. And how confident? I know how confident would you be that Tommy Fury would win again?
I'd still be confident, but to be honest with you, I mean, I was adamant that he would sort of batter try yesterday. I think the only kind of ambiguity in my mind was whether he'd look for a stoppage and stop him.
Mm.
So for me, it was an ugly fight. It was a lot of holding, so don't get me wrong, it was a really unpleasant fight. But I do think Tommy Fury would win again. I have to say that. I can't. I'm not going to sit here and say that KSI is going to win a boxing match against someone who's supposed to be a pro boxer. But to be honest, it's narrowed. But I'd still say maybe 70-30, maybe 65, sort of 35. Beforehand, it was like 90-10. But I feel like with Tommy Fury, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but how many times can we hear Tommy Fury come out in a post-fight interview and just basically say, like, I'm sorry for a poor performance? It's like every time it's like, oh, it wasn't the best performance. I got the job done. It's like at some point, put in a good performance. That's all I want to see. And that's the problem is I don't feel like he's got the attributes to do that. I don't feel like he's got the power. He only got power seemingly to stop these YouTube guys. So his boxing ability is okay, of course. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to criticize him. He's a guy who's making his way in boxing, but I don't think the talent gap isn't significant to the point where he's stopping these guys and putting them away. So yeah, that's just why I feel like he should stay there, stay there. But he's at boss level at the moment. But equally, he's not so beyond the realms of that Jake Paul, if he has a couple of fights and gets a bit better, could beat him.
Yeah, I think that my kind of issue with it is that he's just about beat KSI and did not come close to stopping him. And he's just about beat Jake Paul, didn't come close to stopping Jake Paul, and got dropped by Jake Paul. So I just feel like he's kind of walking. I feel like Tommy Fury's kind of walking a bit of a tightrope here, and it wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if he fought KSI or Jake Paul again. I think it's like he could lose. I think he really could. So we'll see. Look, it's exciting. We're going to be engaged with it, aren't we? As with a lot of other people. Final question to put you on the spot here, Elliot. Mentioned here Tommy Fury, KSI, Tommy Fury, Jake Paul. Feel free to mention any other names that you think Tommy Fury could fight next. I don't know if Logan Paul or there's no one else. There's no one kind of in the YouTube influencer world that kind of springs to me as someone who's as much of a big name as a Jake Paul or KSI. These guys are very famous, very well known. Say Tommy Fury fights Jake Paul next instead of KSI. What would your prediction be?
I mean, I think that's an even fight. I really do. I think it's points. I don't think there'd be a stoppage, but you know what? My head says 55 Tommy Fury, but my heart says go all in on 55 Jake Paul. And I would like to see. I actually think Jake Paul, out of all those guys you mentioned, is actually quite sincerely trying to develop in the boxing world, though, as opposed to the other guys who are taking it a bit less seriously, like you say, Logan Paul's flirting with WWE, etc. KSI doing whatever sideman things he's doing, and it's like, I genuinely feel like Jake's actually trying to sort of succeed, and to be honest with you, is behind Tommy Fury slightly in obviously that level. So I actually make it a really close fight, to be honest. I don't think Tommy Fury would stop him. I just don't think he will. I don't think he's got the power to stop him. And yeah, questions would remain to me on how Jake Paul was developed since that fight and what he's learned. I don't think he didn't necessarily say he didn't get going, but he didn't look like he was in trouble either, and he put Tommy Fury down. So yeah, I can also see a split decision victory for either one again the next time around.
So true. And like to sign off, that's one of the things that I don't mind about this is that you don't know. I don't really know either. So it's a tricky one. It's not like you go into these events knowing, like, categorically knowing who's going to win. Whereas when it comes to actual boxing, a lot of the time you know who's going to win. So it just kind of takes the gloss over. Whereas here it adds a bit of excitement because there's more questions over what's going to happen. Elliot, we'll leave it there until the next Misfits event. We don't know when it's going to be. But yeah, we'll be tuning into the big Misfits event, the smaller ones when we don't know who anyone is, maybe not. We'll see what next for Tommy Fury, for KSI, and for Logan, and for the Paul brothers as well. Until next time, I will speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.